Hello, everybody. Brandon with Task Force Pest and Mold, and I'm going to kind of break down some questions that I get all the time when it comes to pest control mostly. I might throw a couple in for mold control if I don't run out of time. I'm trying to keep this video under 10 minutes, but I also want this to be very informative and give people a lot of the information that they seem to be looking for. So, for starters, a lot of people ask me when it comes to pest control, is it worth doing a contract? Is it worth doing either a monthly, bi monthly, or quarterly service? And I will say that is entirely up to you. Situations are very different for everybody. However, I have found that, at least with the majority of my customers, it's worth it because you can either pay a certain amount monthly or you can pay a company to come out. And to be honest, if you're paying for a company to come out more than twice a year, you're spending more money for those two calls than you would spend the entire year if you did it monthly. The main difference would be you're also paying less money upfront and monthly than you are paying for two one time services. So, to kind of break down how the industry works in that sense, if we are going to a job that we assume is going to be a one-time service, we're only going to see this customer once. They might call us back, a couple months later, maybe a year later or whatever, but it's not a regularly scheduled service. We have to essentially gauge a lot of different factors, and we have to make sure that we make a profit off that stop. And the way that we do that is essentially by saying, look, we're going to charge you $200 to $300 for this stop. And it's mainly because it's not a service that we can just kind of throw into a route. We can't schedule it out a couple weeks in advance. Usually, if it's something you're calling us for that we have to come out for now, it has to be squeezed into an already busy schedule. And then we have to find a tech that's willing to take on the job, who has the equipment and the experience necessary to get that job done. We kind of squeeze that job into their already tight schedule, and then they have to run out and do the stop. So for us, we have to make sure that stop is going to be worth doing. When it comes to those one-time services, that's where a lot of pest control companies make a quick buck. We go in, like on average, for example, I've worked for the three major pest control companies, and typically the way they would do it is they would charge $300 to $400 for that one stop. But if you were a monthly or quarterly customer, you might pay $120 every quarter. So if you think about it, you're spending $100 a quarter at 12 months. That's $1,200 for the year. But if you call a pest control company and you need two one-time services, that's about $800. So you're kind of still playing around the same ballpark. If you get three calls in a year, then you've hit or exceeded the amount of money you would pay if you had someone come out quarterly. Uh, and the quarterly service covers a lot more stuff. If we come out for a one-time service, we're only going to cover that one specific thing we're coming out there for. Whereas with a general pest control contract, we're usually covering a whole plethora of different issues. So there is a huge difference, and it is worth it to get put onto some kind of contract and schedule. It's just how it is when that's just how the dice rolls. So another question that I get asked all the time is, when it comes to a general pest control contract, is the contract designed to benefit the company, or is it something that's really a mutually beneficial agreement? And I will say most of the time it's a mutually beneficial agreement. The benefit of having that contract, the benefit of having that, whether it's monthly, bi monthly, or quarterly service, it doesn't really matter. But the benefit of having that contract and in paper is that this company has signed this paper saying they're going to provide you this service. They're going to cover these different things that that contract says it's going to cover. You signed it. You stated that you're going to essentially obligate yourself to making those payments and allowing them to come and do the service that they're charging you for, and for a certain period of time. So it's more to protect the company from you and you from the company. It is usually gauged more towards the company. Obviously, the company's the one who wrote it. So it's going to benefit them more than you in the long run. But it does have protections in there for you as a customer as well. There are a lot of things that the Department of Agriculture requires us to put into these contracts so that it's very open ended, or not open ended, it's very plain language how we're going to proceed with our operations and how you're going to proceed with paying for us to do those operations. So, yeah, another question that I get more often than not is, when it comes to a pest control service, should I do it monthly, bi monthly, or quarterly? And again, that's really up to you. That depends on a couple of things. For one, anyone who's offering a mosquito control service that's not monthly isn't a good pest control company. They have no idea what they're doing because there's not a single mosquito control product on the market that lasts longer than 30 days. Even the label might say 60 days. Those are perfect laboratory conditions. UV, the light from the sun, actually degrades pesticide over time. So you got to deduct some points off or some days off of how long that residual lasts based on UV. If it rains, you got to take off a couple of days from the rain. If you have animals or traffic in that area where people are walking through the grass multiple times or through the bushes or whatever, any of that degrades that pesticide residual. So, you're taking off days, sometimes weeks. So, on average, if a product says it'll last 60 days, I usually cut that in half and say it'll probably last 30. You can guarantee it'll last 30, but you can't guarantee it's going to last 60. It's just not going to happen. So, if you are trying to get mosquito control, mosquito, tick, fleas, you want that monthly. You absolutely cannot have it any other way, or you will never control your issue. When it comes to general pest control, you can do it quarterly. I don't usually recommend doing a quarterly service just because I think quarterly is really just a way for pest control companies to maximize their profit. I'll do another video later on kind of explaining how they do that and how that works for us as pest control companies. But honestly, the product is really only made to last about 30 to 60 days max. There are some product labels that say 90 days, but again, all these different things degrade the amount of time that it's actually going to sit there and be effective. So you're never going to get the full 90 days. And usually by the time we come up on the third month, customers start calling and saying that they're seeing more issues. So we tend to have to come back a little early anyway. So I never recommend quarterly service unless somebody just absolutely wants to pay the minimal amount of money that they can and have us come out the minimal amount of times that they can have us out. We try to make our monthly as cheap as we can so that customers prefer to have us monthly. It's also a lot easier when you have a pest control technician and a customer who are used to seeing each other every month at a certain day of the week or certain day of the month. So you don't have those months where, oh, this time this falls on a holiday. So, you know, it was 2 months since you've seen this technician. None of us knew it fell on a holiday when that technician was there. So now we have to make this contact and let you know, hey, this pest control visit falls on a holiday. Can we reschedule for another day? Whereas if it's a monthly pest control contract, then we're going to be able to look at it and be like, oh, your next service is on this day. That's a holiday. So it's probably going to fall on this day, or it will fall on this day. So there are a lot of benefits to having monthly pest control services done. The biggest one that I can think of is that it's going to absolutely, for sure, have a residual when we come back. There's no gaps in between how long your product is going to last. You know that your service is actually working and doing a great job from start to finish, from treatment to treatment. Another question in the same vein that I get asked all the time is, which product is best to use? Which product is like the absolute top of the line best thing for pest control companies to use? And a lot of customers will go through their tickets and hope that whatever I said is a good product is on that ticket, and if it's not, then they'll try to go to another company that does provide that. The downside to that is I don't know every pesticide manufacturer out there. I really don't. I can tell you what the best top of the line is name brand wise and active ingredient wise. But there are so many companies out there that make generics of those name brand pesticides that some of them work really well, some of them don't. Sometimes the inactive ingredient is just as important as the active ingredient. And people don't believe me when I say that, but I can actually give you a very good example right now. So this is a bottle of Lambda Star. And this is the generic. This is not the name brand. The name brand of this would actually be Demand CS. So Demand CS is a really good product and it works really well. They're both lambda cyhalothrin. They're both lambda cyhalothrin 9.7%. So they're meant to be identical products. However, I have 3 of these. I have Lambda Star, I have Demand CS, and I have Seismic CS. They are all lambda cyhalothrin. They're all 9.7%. The labels are very similar. They work for this very similar type of pest. They're all encapsulated. But if you look at them, I wish I had the other two to bring in and show you. But uh, Lambda Star is this almost brown color. It almost looks like eggnog, and it's kind of thick. It's not very thick, but it's more viscous than water, for example. Seismic CS actually reminds me a lot of this. It is pure white and looks like 2% milk. It is almost the consistency of water, if not the consistency of water. And then Demand CS is actually, it has the same color as like D milk does, or whole milk as they call it, where it's very bright white, but it's also a little thicker than the 2% or anything like that. So it's three products that are very similar. They're very different viscosities, and with that viscosity comes a huge difference in application. So even though all of these can be used in the same sprayers, all of these can be used for the same applications, the problems that we run into is that Demand CS is a very good product that works extremely well. Lambda Star, not so much. I don't have as good of results with Lambda Star as I do with Demand CS. And Seismic, I have good results with it if I use it on exteriors as a mosquito control spray. I do not have great results with it when I use it inside for anything else. So there's not a specific product or active ingredient that I can tell you works better than the next thing. But I can tell you that when it comes to pesticides, money matters. If you spend the money on, or if your company spends the money on a name brand, that money is well spent. Those name brand companies dump a lot of money into development and research and into making their product the best, most sound product on the market. So even though they do have all these generics that come out with pretty cool, cheaper versions of the product, it's not the same. They don't tend to work the same. Um, so when I got my degree falls under biochemistry. So a lot of pesticides and pharmaceuticals kind of go hand in hand under the umbrella of biochemistry. And my ex was a pharmacy technician. And one of the things we talked about when we talked about our professions and uh, different aspects of our professions, one of the things that really align in pesticides and pharmaceuticals is that sometimes the name brand pharmaceutical will work for someone, whereas the generic will not, or won't work as well. And it has nothing to do with the active ingredient, it has to do with the inactive ingredients. Sometimes those inactive ingredients can really help either push the active ingredient, make it more effective, make it less effective. It can change the delivery system of whatever the active ingredient is. Those inactive ingredients have so much to do with how this product actually works. It's kind of, I would say it's very similar to if you were to take Tylenol and you were to take like a rapid release Tylenol versus like a regular Tylenol tablet. They're the same active ingredient, same percentage, same milligrams, everything. But one's going to work a lot faster and last longer than the other one will because their active ingredients really do make that product. So, with that in mind, I've already kind of went over on this video length. I'm going to go ahead and close this down. If you guys have any more questions or anything you want me to go over or explain in detail when it comes to pest control, I will gladly pop a video up for it. As you can see, I don't have a whole lot of subscribers or viewers right now. So this is the best time that you can hit me up because I can answer every single comment that I get. So I hope to see you guys in the comments.